Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Peak for Anxiety. My guest today is a writer, mother of six, trauma survivor, and the founder of the Colin James Barth Outreach and the author of her own personal memoir, Notes from a Blackberry. Please welcome in Julie Barth. How are you doing today, Julie?
Good, Pete. How are you? Thanks for
Good.
having me.
So welcome to me. I'm so glad you're here. So why don't you tell everybody a little more about yourself?
Okay, as you said, I'm an author. I'd probably, if anyone asked, to define myself as a mother first. I have six children, and own a charity. I don't own a charity. I run a charity organization called the Colin James Barth Outreach, which is kind of born out of all the experiences that I've had in life. We cater to trying to help women who find themselves in a position where they suddenly become head of household while also having to take care of their children, and just try and help through the hurdles of getting somebody on their feet rather than letting them, falter without a whole bunch of safety nets. Because, in our society, we really just don't have a whole lot of safety nets until you've lost everything. So that's kind of our mission, is to be that, source when, you have nowhere else to turn to.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love what you're doing. I think it's great. I think it's scary though that we have to lose everything for us to finally get the help we need, kind of thing. And it's just, I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me, honestly. But I'm so happy you're doing what you're doing. It's great because I think a lot of people run into that problem, and then they go to, oh God, what is the next steps I do? You just all of a sudden they become the head of the household. Now they don't know what they're supposed to do, and there's where you step in to help out, which is great. I mean, like I said, I absolutely love what you're doing. So your self memoir, Notes from a Blackberry. What
Yes.
was the basis of it? What was that one? I'm sorry. What was that one moment where you were like, hey, you know what? I want to write this book? Because I know when it comes to telling a lot of people's own stories, it's really hard because then you have to release it all to the public and people start knowing everything. I mean, I know it had to be nerve wracking.
Well, okay, so the backstory behind my first memoir, it's like part one of my life. My husband, I married my grammar school sweetheart. We had grown up together, and it was my first kiss, and we ended up having a daughter who has something called primordial dwarfism. But the road to get there was crazy. There were a lot of ups and downs, and we didn't know what she had. It was in 2001. There was no Google. Again, I always say that's probably a good thing rather than a bad, because it would have driven me nuts.
Right.
We had 4 years of traveling around to different hospitals. I think, even in utero, 40 some ultrasounds to then have her come out. And it was even, the same mystery after she was here, as when we were pregnant, which is crazy to think about, because, our mindset was, when she comes out, well, I'll figure it out. But it
Yeah.
took us many years. So right as she was getting better, we were rejoining life. We proceeded to have two more children, and we had an older child. So there were four in total. And my youngest daughter was 6 months. He just, again, I'd known him my entire life, and he was a trader down at the Board of Trade. And he just wasn't acting himself, just very disconnected. And so I said, I want you to go to the hospital, because he had been back and forth to the doctors. And, that's another issue, is men's health care and the way that
Hmm.
they view, here's some Carafate. It's just indigestion. And, it started to sound to me like there was something more going on that wasn't being addressed. So I said, go to the hospital, figure it out, and don't come home until you do. And within 4 hours, he was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Yeah. So 2 days later, it was kind of like they sat in a room with us and they said, he has 2 weeks to live. Take him home, let him say goodbye to his kids. So
What?
it didn't happen that way, thank God. We had 16 months, albeit some of them were, not very good months. Some of them
Yeah.
were great months. But what I would do is I would take him downtown on Tuesdays. And, like I said, we had four little kids. And I thought, oh, this is a great time for us to have those life moments. And unfortunately, as anyone who's ever, had somebody in their life with a very terminal cancer, there weren't many moments of being able to communicate with him. So I would sit there and I had to be quiet because I didn't want to bother him. And I was just literally coming off the throes of everything, unpacking everything that had gone on with Tatum, because when push came to shove, we found out that a lot of malpractice happened that they lied about, that they were saying wasn't true, and just ups and downs. And, I would take her into, have a routine checkup. And the next thing I knew, she was flatlining. So I was kind of unpacking all of that. And I had a Blackberry. So I started writing her story, and I would take parts of it and I would just email it back to myself. And then at the very end, it flowed, kind of into what was going on with him. And so it sat in my laptop for about, I want to say 11 years. I never even read it. I'd pieced it all together and just let it sit because it was just too painful. But in 2023, when I got remarried, I had a horrible divorce, and I came out of that divorce and finally had the courage to read the book. And really, it was kind of part of that aha moment, because I thought, as crazy as that entire decade, or really the first half of my life was, things didn't even get crazy until after he passed. So, um, it was never written to, prove a point or to tell any story, really. It was just really my story. And
Yeah.
I think after reading it, I felt like people could benefit from it, and knowing that, we all say things in our inner voice, that because it's very raw, it's very emotional. And it opened a lot of, even me being the character after reading it, it explained a lot of things for myself that I hoped other people could see, instead of holding on to all those things for all those years. Because I traveled around with a lot of guilt that I didn't know. So that's kind of why I released the book. And it went, in with my daughter, who became an artist. And, it just kind of started this whole trilogy and mission and everything else. So it was kind of the catalyst. That explains the backstory of why I do what I do.
All I gotta say is I am speechless. I did not see that coming. As soon as you said he had stage 4 and then you had the daughter with the situation. So you said it's primordial dwarfism? Is that how you said it? What is? Can you explain to people what that is? Because even I don't know what that is. I'm a little curious myself.
Yeah, so it's a type of dwarfism where, some types of dwarfism, you have a larger head that is disproportionate.
Yeah.
Primordial dwarfism is literally, they just look like tiny people.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't, there are stars with it, but I'm not sure. It's when, at the time when we found out what she had, it was on the Discovery Channel, and that's how we found out,
I
because
think
she
I
was,
think I've seen something like that before, where the girl was she
yeah,
just looked really small, but it wasn't the usual dwarfism you see, like you were saying, the bigger head and the smaller body kind of thing. So, I
right.
mean, you have all that
Yeah.
going on, and then you have your husband who's going through what he's going through. Wow. All I can say is wow, because that's just a lot. Like, I'm hats off to you, because I don't know if I could handle that. I've got a lot going on in my own life too, and I really haven't told anybody about this, but I just found out my wife may have thyroid cancer. So I'm
Oh,
like,
I'm so
oh, this is
sorry.
awesome, and then she has to have a whole drill in her head, and it's just, I got a lot going on, but I'm like, damn, what you had, wow. But
Well,
Julie, I really do
I think,
appreciate it.
yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear about your wife. That's
Yeah.
terrible. Yeah, and I think that that's also the other thing, is that, I think we all think that we have so much going on, and like we live
Hmm.
in our own head, and we're like, we don't really want to talk about it, but everyone has a backstory to tell. Some,
Yeah.
and it's all in degrees. So as bad as it was, and that's been my perspective, kind of like, as bad as I think I have it, there's always someone else out there who,
Yeah. No, I
unfortunately,
agree.
as sad as that is, So yeah, I apologize that you're going through that, because it's very, I can't even imagine, knock on wood, the diagnosis of cancer yourself. But when you love someone, and, you're there for them and you're supporting them, and you can't do anything, it's like, you almost wanna, like, tap out and be like, "I got this. You
Yeah.
you go. Let me take your place." And, again, I'm very thankful I
Nothing is more
didn't have to go
surreal
through
than
that, but
having to have the conversation with your significant other about, like, because she has to have an operation done on her mastoid, which is that one right behind your ear. They have to drill into it because her bone is decaying. Okay. So,
yeah.
nothing is more surreal than the conversation with your significant other when you have to talk about whether or not something goes wrong, if you're pulling the plug or not. That was just a moment of just like, oh God, everything else. So like I said, with everything you were dealing with, I could feel you on that 100%. I'm just like, wow, and it just gets so surreal, and it's
It
just
does.
hard, man. It's a lot going on. Like, like you said, it could always be worse, but it's hard to watch your loved one degrade and you kind of kind of just kind of fade away from you. And, it's almost like watching someone with Alzheimer's slowly lose themselves little by little. And I watched it in my grandmother and it was just hard because she forgot who everybody was, and she had this book, where it's kind of like, what is it, that Adam Sandler movie with Drew Barrymore, where she forgot everything every single day. It was almost similar something to that situation, but we
51st
had a,
dates, yeah,
yeah, I'm talking about that whole scenario, that kind of thing like
I
that
do.
too. And it's just, so you have six total, but at the time you had the four. So were the other two come in from another marriage?
Yeah, so after Colin passed, we lived in the same city that we had an amazing group of people who actually an entire community that really came out for us. We
Oh,
were
that's awesome.
it was one of those small towns where you not only, you end up marrying people that you went to high school with. It was just something familiar and then you knew everyone. It was almost like it was a continuation
Yeah.
of your former selves in your adult lives. So we were very fortunate to have a community around us that did that. But at the same time, when he passed away, it was like I was stuck in talk about 51st dates. It was like when he passed, everyone in my life, or really everyone in the community, they had just started grieving, like the loss was so heavy to them that all seeing me just like brought sadness wherever I went, whether I wanted it to or not.
Yeah.
And I think even more so, I had watched him slip away for 16 months, like every single day I lost
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
piece of him. And so when they were just starting to grieve, I was kind of like, I'm out. Like I can't sit in the sadness anymore. I need to move forward. I need to not be myself. Like I can't be that person anymore. So I just found, and this is another reason why I wrote the book because I'm going to say this, and this is a construct of my own mind. I felt as if people were judging me so harshly because either I wasn't grieving hard enough, I wasn't acting the way
Yeah.
everyone wanted
No,
me
I
to
get that
act.
feeling completely.
Yeah, or like they were judging my love for him because, like, how could you just move on so quickly? Because I did start dating someone else a year later. How could you? And again, I'm not sure that anybody felt that way, but I did. And so I was, projecting that onto other people. So I met a gentleman who was working in my home about a year after Colin passed, and I had to have the house redone because I couldn't stay if I didn't because it was, our dream house. And so I ended up leaving town with him and moving to a very isolated place in Charlotte. And when we got there, it was like the bottom just fell out. It was 10 years of a very abusive relationship. And again, that's what led me on the road to go back to my roots, and release the first book. But when we got there, Tatum ended up, same daughter who has primordial dwarfism, ended up coming down with a rare form of connective tissue cancer. So
Jeez.
it was completely unrelated to everything before.
Yeah.
So the only cure for it was removal. So literally they like removed her right side torso and grafted her legs to fill that space. And, it was just literally a continuation of what am I doing here? But it was in that moment that for the first time since Colin had passed or even gotten sick, I truly remembered like who he was and how much we were able to fight together, but how much like the loss that I felt. And then I
Yeah.
was stuck in this horrible relationship where he didn't even come home at night. He wasn't at the hospital. He just didn't care about me at all. So, again, I felt the blessing of what I had, but also like it was like all the memories that I was trying so hard to forget about how great he was and who he was because I didn't want to think about him. They all flooded back to remember who I had actually lost, not the person that I ended up losing in the end because there was not much left of him. So,
Yeah. No, that's great to have the happy memories, especially in grief. And I think when it comes to the timeline, I think it's based on your own thing, like people grieve in their own ways. Like, I do my own thing. A lot of times when people pass, I don't really let it affect me too much. It's only several people, but that's just how I am though. It's just, if I didn't really have a strong connection with some people, it's kind of like, all right, it bothers me for a day, but it's it. But when I lost my godmother who I was really close to, it was hard, man. It was like you were sitting there and I was actually recording an episode of the show. So this is really interesting what happened. So I felt this like real weird feeling like, ugh, something's not right. Okay. So then 2 hours later, I got the message from my cousin, which is her son, and he was like, "Yeah, hey, listen, by the way, mom had passed away." And he only told me first, and very limited people, which I understand that completely, and it was just like I just didn't know what that feeling was, and it fucked me up bad. Like I couldn't even imagine, like, and I know all about abusive relationships. My ex and I, we were together 15 years, and it was just God, it was a mess. I feel you. I'm like, I can relate 100% to a lot of your story, honestly, without the loss of the loved one yet. But I mean, I know what you're talking about. It's crazy because then it's like, you didn't want to think about it, but then he just keeps coming back to not even haunt you, but to inspire, let you know, hey, listen, these are the great things and the great memories you had with them, and all that other kind of stuff, And I'm sorry you had to go through what you had to go through to get to where you're at now. But I mean,
Thank you.
maybe it was God's plan the whole time is for you to go and then come back and then realize, what you were missing, and a lot of times to me that was your grieving process too, because I get that small town feeling of like, everybody knows everybody's business kind of thing. And I went to high school in a town like that too. And it was like a lot of the people I knew did the same thing. They all went to school together and a lot of them ended up getting married and things like that too. And it was weird too, that some of the combinations, because we were just like,
Yeah.
what? We never would have seen that coming, but
Yes, agreed. Yes. Yeah, and there's something very comforting about it, but at the same time, I didn't know myself without him. So when he
yeah.
was gone, I didn't fit in anymore. I never really felt like I fit in anyway. Um,
Did you always feel like it was always Colin and then you're Julie, like the sidekick kind of thing, like Batman to the Robin almost, you know what I'm saying?
No, but I always felt like he protected me.
Yeah.
I'm a very, very sensitive soul, very, like, probably more so than anyone will ever know about me. And where I hid all of those insecurities and I just bounce. People think that I'm very outgoing. People think that nothing bothers me. And, that's what I do is I pretend like, oh, I don't care. I don't care,
Yeah, you mask a
and I
lot, yeah.
shove it down. Yeah. And I think Colin was the first person to say, like, who cares if they don't like you? Don't worry about it. I love you. You don't have to worry about so and so or what they're saying or if somebody's staring at Tatum. Who cares? I remember when we first found out what Tatum had.
Yeah.
So we had been to hospital on hospital. And so my friend called me and she said, I know what Tatum has. And I was like, oh, well, great for you because we literally went to the Mayo Clinic. We went to Boston Children's. We went
Yeah.
to Children's Memorial and nobody knew what was going on. She said, well, she has this thing. There's this Discovery Channel show and it has primordial dwarfism on it. And I think that's what Tatum has. And, I remember Googling it and because then, the internet had picked up by the time she was 2003, 2004, and up popped Tatum. And I was just like devastated because everyone kept saying, oh, she'll grow out of it. She'll be fine. She'll be normal.
Yeah.
And so I was devastated, and Colin came home from work and he walked in the door and I was like, I have to tell you something. And he's like, all right. And I said, follow me. And I showed him the whole article on the internet. And he just looked at me and he went, what's for dinner? And I was like, what do you mean, what's for dinner? Like, do you know, what are you talking about? He's like, Julie, did you really think that nothing was wrong with her? And I was like, yeah, I kind of did. And he's like, nothing has changed. She is who she is. She will be what she's going to be. And nothing has changed. And that's just what he
Yeah.
was for me. He was the voice of reason. He was the protector. He was the shielder. I just always knew no matter what came at us, we could conquer. And suddenly it was just me. And I didn't know it was like I had lost half of myself. So,
Yeah, I could see
yeah,
that.
that
I
was
get
that
that.
was what he was for me, and it was hard finding my way in the world without him.
No, I get that completely. I get that feeling too, because it's like that for me now. It's like, I just you have that other person that completes your whole circle of you, that they play off everything else that you do and things like that. And I'm the more sensitive type and my wife is the more aggressive type, but it's just the way she was raised kind of thing. So, but she grew up in a small town too, had the same situations and things like that. But, Colin sounds like a great guy, man. So sad I didn't get to meet him, man. He sounds like a a pretty interesting character though, because like I had the same feeling about certain things. Like my daughters were, one of them was questioning her sexuality and came to told me one day, Dad, I think I like girls, and I'm like, okay. like my response is the same thing. Okay, so what do you want me to say? I don't love you. I mean, what do you want me to say in that situation? And I love his approach to things too. It's just like, he already had the thought has the future sight to be like, there's something wrong here, we could either freak out about it or we could just kind of stay mellow about it and just kind of learn more about it as we go, you know. And I get being worried because I get the whole side of, you know, you being the sensitive side. I am the same way though. I'm very hypersensitive when it comes to a lot of things. You know, I'm usually the more emotional person versus my wife when it comes to things, you know, and I get it. So I'm right there with you. I understand that because me, I would freaking the hell out. I'm like, whoa, what is this? You know, what are people going to think? You know, because those are the thoughts that
Yeah.
originally would come in your head is how am I going to explain this to people so they don't look at her and treat her differently? Like she's just some kind of, you know, foreign creature of some planet or, you know what I mean? It's just like people don't understand things. So they start judging things and they start saying things. Oh, well, it must have been something she did or something he did. And it's not like that though, unfortunately. A lot of times I think people get that misconception in their head that something had happened or you did something or you did drugs or some, you know, some like far-fetched idea that's not even close to what's going on. And they need to stay off Wikipedia, by the way, because, you know, it's like, it's just so aggravating because it's like why treat them differently? Ask questions, like learn more. You never know, you know. Just because she's different than you, why do we have to treat them differently? You know, and I feel like that still goes on today, even worse. And it's like, you know, you get out now with the internet, you have access to all these other social media sites. It's like anything that goes on that's out of the ordinary, it's automatically be posted on there, and that's it, you know. And then people are gonna start talking their stuff and start saying wild things, you know, and all these other crazy.
Didn't say nothing fazed him, but he was if something was wrong or if he had a problem with someone or like he just attacked the problem. Like if he had a problem with somebody, he would just call them out and say, like, hey, I didn't like what you did. And he took care of business, instead of dragging it all around with you. And I'm a good dragger. I will be mad at someone for 10 years and never
Hmm.
tell them I won't treat them any differently, but I'll carry a grudge over something and it's a character trait that I've worked very hard over the past, especially like since Colin died, and I recognized it to stop. And to your credit about, I have a theory about why people do that, and it happened. I think it happened with Tatum, but more so it happened with Colin, where after he died, where I was like this heroine who couldn't do anything wrong. I was this strong wife and this great mom who was juggling everything. After he died, it was kind of like I flipped. I went from in my head, maybe, but there were voices out there where I went from like this person could do nothing wrong to this person who's so severely judged and couldn't do anything right. And
Yeah,
I think as human beings, I don't even think we mean to do this. It's just that when you see a child with special needs or you see, someone else who's, significant other is sick, it makes you feel very vulnerable that it could happen to you. And
yeah,
if it happens for absolutely no reason and it is random and it's just the universe, that is a very hard seat for people to sit in and it makes them uncomfortable. So therefore, I think what they have to do is make a reason why you're going through what you're going through. Because if there's no reason, then it could happen to them. And
yeah,
I don't think that anyone does it consciously, but I think when you see something like that, you have to say, well, I haven't done any of A, B, and C, whatever you think happened to get there, so I'm safe.
yeah,
And yeah, and I think that's the ugly side of illness. I think it's the ugly side of disability. But again, I think that that's a human characteristic that it's a protective mechanism that I think we all have to a certain degree. Some obviously take it a lot further, but I do think that there's instant like, oh, there's a reason why. Because if not, then I don't want to be in her shoes. So
yeah.
I have to I have to convince myself that she's done something to deserve it that I haven't, because I can't live in this feeling like I could be next. So
Right.
I think that's why a lot of that goes on. Not that I didn't ever do anything to make people talk about what I was doing. Everybody is. But I think when you have a special needs daughter or something tragic like that happens in front of the world, everybody's got something to say about it. Some people are kind, some people are not. And yeah, I agree with you. The social media, I was just talking with my daughters about this. I have a 14-year-old and we were on the road yesterday to a concert and, we were just like, why is America, and I am going to single America out here, why is everyone so angry and so quick to judge and just I call it pre-pissed. Like
Mhm.
they're already mad and they're looking for a way, an outlet for that anger. They're looking for an allowance for that anger. And I don't understand, where it's coming from. I think a lot of it is the media that loves to
Mhm.
pit us against one another and stir the pot. But I said to her, and I'm a very optimistic person, and I hope that this is not the case. And I said, for the first time since I've been alive, I feel like there are things that can't be fixed, and I am a fixer. And it really bothers me because I don't know what the answer is. I don't think taking guns away is going to do it because the guns aren't the problem. The people that want the guns and why they want the guns and why what they're doing is the
Great fucking
problem.
point.
And if
Pardon the
they,
French, but great fucking point, Julie, right there. It's the person that it's the gun is an inanimate object. It isn't what caused the problem. It's the person that operated the weapon that did it, and in so many of these different situations, it's a lot of times like, well, let's take the Tennessee one for the kid that was doing the school shooting in Tennessee. The parents knew he had bad intentions from a gun anyways, which I don't get. I like it boggles my mind. It's like, why are you going to give this kid the power to do something destructive, knowing that he has bad intentions in the beginning, and not think you're going to get held accountable for it? And it's just crazy. And then your 14-year-old is going to is seeing these things, going, "Mom, what's going on in the world? Why are they allowing these kind of things?" And it's like, then you have to explain it to them. And it's the same thing with like social media posts with females in general, though. Like a lot of the girls that have more provocative clothing and trying to get all the attention. It's like these younger girls see that and go, well, maybe that's what I need to do too. But it's like, then you have to explain it because I'm a girl dad. So I had to explain it to my daughter, like, boys just don't know how to act right. And, anybody that's listening and gets offended by this, I really honestly don't know how else to explain it to her. But, it was just like, friends and, post all these different pictures and not feel like, somebody is going to say something about it. But, at the same time, it's just like, it's so bad. It's just like, we don't police our social media sites enough that we have these predators that are just out there messaging people. Even Roblox was the one that really tripped me up a little bit. The one that the
yeah,
kids would always play that game all the time. Then it was like, then these things started coming out by these different predators that would come out and start like disguising themselves as other things. And they're asking information to these kids, and these kids are responding. Because we had a situation with a friend of ours, son, he was giving out his home address to some random person. And I was like, I told his mom, I was like, yeah, hey, listen, your son's in there giving out his home address. I just said something to him for you, but you might want to go reiterate that with him. He's not even
yeah,
thinking about what he's typing because he's like, oh, this is just my friend. I'm typing and telling where I'm from, and Roblox, and what was the other one? Minecraft was the other one too. We had an incident where there's a young kid from Colorado that was messaging my daughter and her friend telling, oh, I love you and this and that. And I was like, clearly he's not there all up there because when I messaged him, I wasn't rude. I just asked him a bunch of questions and he's giving out his home address and where he lives. And I'm just like, yeah, man. I was like, I just think you need to stop messaging these girls. And it was just like, it was that surreal moment like, oh God, now I can't let these kids play on the internet without somebody wandering in, asking or saying these weird things to them.
yeah, I agree.
And given Tatum's situation, she starts posting things on social media. People are gonna start asking questions, and then those harsh critics will come in and start saying things too. And it's just like, hats
Yeah, I
off to
mean,
her. Is
my
she is
my
she the
girls,
artist, by the
yeah,
way?
she
Is
is,
Tatum?
she is.
She is the artist. Awesome. Okay. Well,
Yeah,
you know what I'm
yeah,
saying though. She is already gonna be in the spotlight already because she's an artist, and then they're gonna find out, what her condition is, and then unfortunately, we have to deal with the internet trolls that come with it and things like that too, and it's just, I 100% don't agree with that. I think we need to police these sites a lot better. These comments that get made, they need to really start really checking through some of the comments that get made of these crazy things because it's always something that they're mad about. And there was a situation with a young lady who is a cosplayer, which basically is like she dressed up like her favorite anime character. Okay, so people were so triggered by this girl not being of what they claim to be. Oh, the character is supposed to be white, but they really don't define them in these shows. It's just the character plays the character. She was excited. It was her favorite character. She dressed up. The cosplay looked amazing. She looked just like him. But these people were so triggered that they threatened to kill her. Oh, well, you're not
yeah.
this. You're not that. It's like, but then, these younger kids, like your 14-year-old, is going to see these and go, well, mom, why are they so mad about that? What's so angry? Why's got them so triggered? You know what I mean? And it's the same thing. It's the same thing you're running into. It's just like, there's just angry people out there. The internet gives them more access to people now. And now you have to deal with the fact that now you have to worry about some predator or some weirdo coming in there and start saying something very triggering or start telling these poor kids, well, your life doesn't matter. And all these other harsh things you could say to them. You know what I mean? it's disgusting, honestly.
Yeah, I did a lot of dumb stuff, you know? I grew
Oh,
up
I
in a
know.
time when we didn't have
I
cell
am
phones,
speaking
and
from
it's
experience.
a miracle I'm alive. But I will say that, the world was much smaller. I didn't have to deal with all of the things that come at these kids so
Yeah,
quickly,
God.
that we don't even know about. Ignorance sometimes feels like bliss, but it's not. And, with all my 6 kids, I will have my oldest call me and say, "Did you know what your youngest was doing online?" Of course, I'm
Yeah,
like, "No, I don't. I have
yeah.
no clue," because I've never been one to follow them around or to see,
Well,
what's
hats
been
off to
going
the older
on. But
sister chiming in though too, because it's a great sense of family. It seems like you built a great sense of family. Everybody's looking out for each other. Hey, mom, I don't mean to be snitching on my younger sister, but do you know what she's posting? And it could be nothing, honestly, or it could be something. And you're like, I can't, it's hard when it comes to doing that kind of thing because you got to sit there and monitor everything they're doing these days. In fear that you don't know what's going on, and as a parent, it's hard, and I know you agree to this 100%. It's hard to keep track of all that stuff of what these guys are getting into, and with them being able to get on TikTok and all these other sites that they probably shouldn't be on right this second. Instead of them doing a better job of is sorting through some of these younger kids, they're exposed to all these things. Like the Charlie Kirk video where unfortunately where they saw the people who were posting it everywhere he got shot. You could see the whole video, what happened. It's like, what happens with the 14-year-old kid that's seeing that? Like they don't need to see that. That's real world to them. Like I get it happened, but let their parents talk to them about it. Don't show a video of a man being shot right there in public like that for somebody to see, and then a little kid sees that and then they're traumatized. They don't know what to say after that. Well, mom, what did I just look at? It's not like we were kids when Faces of Death was the big thing, and we all talk about, oh, we all watch Faces of Death. Nobody watched that stuff. That stuff was brutal to watch. And then all these other websites we had limited access to that you could get into. But with that's why I have a love hate relationship with social media. I feel like it's great to connect with people, other things, but at the same time, it's a very dangerous place for younger kids these days because the messages that are being sent out to them are not great, and then some of them, see these other posts and see, okay, well, I want to be like these people. I want to be a content creator, but don't realize what the backside of it is or the backlash you deal with when it comes to those kind of things when you're in the public light, and
yeah.
things like that too. And then their mental health becomes a big issue too, because then they start cyberbullying people and and hell, these kids can't go into video games these days without getting cussed out by a grown man, which hats off to some of these companies. They have ways to report it now. It's, child abuse and things like this and all those other things you can do now, but it's like, it hadn't gotten to the point it got to now, because there was an incident recently last year where there was a person talking trash with a little kid. Dude drove to the kid's house, ended up taking the kid's life because he was so mad over a damn video game because he was like, oh, well, this kid's just jaw jacking at me and saying things like that. And all the things that we never did possible. Like we as kids always told somebody, yeah, roll up, roll up. We're all serious until that person shows up at your door and then you have to deal with that head on kind of thing. And it's like, I could speak for once and tell you that when we refer to a Call of Duty lobby, I have to explain this to my wife all the time. She goes, what the hell is a Call of Duty lobby? Just to summarize it for anybody who hasn't played, didn't grow up in the 90s and didn't play in a Call of Duty lobby, it was the most toxic environment you could be in. Like anything got said and everything got said in these things. And I'm telling you right now, 90% of us all would have been banned. We would not have had internet access if that's how it worked at that point because we did some
Well,
stupid
that's probably
shit.
been a good thing.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying though? Like, but we speak from experience though when we're talking to these younger kids and things like that too. And that's why I'm pushing so hard for mental health because it's like we need to talk to some of these kids at a younger age about it. And because when social media got introduced, actually, one of my guests, Mr. Whiskey, and I were discussing this, he said that 20% of young men's suicide rate shot up because the ability to cyberbully was so high right there. And that was just from when social media was introduced. And it's just crazy because it's like, parents shouldn't have to bury their children, that saying goes and things like that too. And it's like, some of these kids are getting attacked from so many fronts now. It's so hard to defend them. But before, when in the 90s for us, it was just AOL Instant Messenger AOL was literally the only thing to get online. Well, maybe, whatever those other weird ones were like Net Earth and all these other ones, all the kind of, the internet was still growing at that time. We didn't have really a big social. You had like AOL chat rooms as about as far as you got to a community of people talking from around the world versus the phone. So,
Yeah.
but to me, it's just
Yeah, and
like,
you knew who was on the other end of the line. That's where things get problematic too.
that too.
when you talk about backlash, I hesitate to even say this, but when Charlie Kirk did die, everyone was so, oh, it's transgender. The only common denominator in most of these situations is a Y chromosome. And I don't say that to single men out. I don't say that because I'm a man hater. I say that because there's something going on where we are not protecting our young men, our boys. We're not being the voice for them. We're not doing something correctly, or we have to step in, because when that is the only common denominator, we love to say all of these other things are going on, but I can honestly say school shootings are almost always men. um, there's something
Mhm.
going on in the mentality and the systematic way that we are treating boys that is leading to what is happening. And that to me means all of these young men, they don't do it for any other reason, but they're hurting inside. And the fact that we aren't stopping to say what is going on in society, that boys are growing up with such horrible fears, with such, whatever it is that is churning all of this. And nobody wants to say it because it sounds like we're blaming a gender. I'm blaming our society for not
Yeah.
recognizing
No.
that this is a problem and not sitting down and saying, what can we do about it? Because not only are people getting hurt and people are getting killed, but men are not having the life that they should have if they are hiding these insecurities, if they're angry all the time, if they're aggressive, if they're feeling bad, whatever it is. We should not let an entire generation of men grow up feeling like the only way to relate to people and to be in this world is by constantly being angry, constantly trying to control, constantly, what kind of life could you possibly have when you're sitting in your room killing things over and over all night long? Why
Yeah,
would we want that for
you
our
have a
young
great
men?
point there, though, because some people can't distort reality from fiction into fake, video games and things like that too, because that was a big conversation about, violence in general too. And I think a lot of it is the way men think, because I did an episode with a woman named Betsy Holmberg, and I were talking about, negative self-talk, and we got into a conversation about men. It's like we work on a tower system. Okay. So men are always looking to the top, which is that alpha male. And I think that when we do that, I think we're really fucking up on it. Like, pardon the language, guys, but I got to be real with y'all. It's just, it's not right. Like, think about it. If you're an alpha male, you should be able to talk about everything. And then guys, we're not told not to talk about our feelings. Whenever we're told about, oh, you're too much a wuss, these things, and then that whole thing about men's mental health came out. The backlash from that, because all these people were celebrating, making these goofy videos, and it's just like, it's a problem, guys. 80% of all suicides are men. Let's just face the facts of the numbers are. The numbers are there. We can't lie that 80% of them are men. Men make up most of the population. So really, if you think about it from this retrospect, you have a group of friends of 6 friends. 4 of those friends aren't making it for some reason. They're going to take their life for some reason. Either they're in pain, or they're, feeling like they're not being heard, or they feel like they're not wanted, or they're just dealing with too much that they just can't open up and talk. And we as men, we need to start talking. We need to open our mouths and say something. We need to talk to somebody. And I don't feel like that's what a lot of these younger guys are seeing from these other social influencers that are coming out, and they're not talking about it. There are a few out there that I've seen that, are doing it, but it's like there's not enough of us out there talking about these things. And, it's scary because, when I did an episode of Men's Mental Health before I started this podcast, I learned that the statistics are that men in my age range are the second most likely to commit suicide. And it's a scary thought, because to me, I was just like, oh shit, whoa, hold on, why is that? So I went to explore it a little more, and it's the fact that we don't talk. It's the generational gaps of men that are being told, oh, well, if you have feelings, you're a wuss, or whatever you want to give it a name. You can give it whatever derogatory name you want. You're being called some kind of name that you're less of a man because you have feelings, and I feel like, that's the wrong message we're sending to these younger gentlemen now, is that they're seeing all these things, they're seeing all these people, the Andrew Tates of the world, all these other people get online. Hell, the one guy that really recently pissed me off was, what is his name now? I think his handle is Cooking for Gains or something like that. I know somebody had mentioned him. But this guy literally was on a live stream, was talking about depression, like, oh, you're not depressed, it's just a mindset or something like that. And I was just like, what? What are you doing, man? Like, what are you telling these people? Because there's young guys out there that are watching your videos going, oh yeah, Cooking for Gains told me that I'm not depressed, it's just a mindset. And it's like, what? It's just like the guy that came on and told everybody that water is not okay to drink. I'm like, stop it, please. And that's what I mean by policing the internet more. It's like these videos where these guys are putting all this misinformation out. It's like, we got to do something about it because we're giving the wrong message to these kids, and we're telling them that, these mental health things that you're having, depression especially, it's not real. It's just a mindset. It's just, you're just, and what, I can't remember his exact explanation, but it was something so stupid. You're just like, wait, what did he just say? Huh? You get the like minion kind of stare, like, it's like, what? It didn't make any sense to me. And it's like, it's so disheartening that, these younger gentlemen are seeing these things and they're like, oh, this is okay because, so and so says it's okay. And then it's like, but no, it's not. Stop. Like that's the problem though with men, is that I feel like, we're so scared to talk about our feelings because a lot of females scrutinize us too, because they'll be like, oh, well, well, you're less of a man because you have feelings, or they're too sensitive. That's the other thing. Or you're too sensitive. I'm like, so I have feelings, so they should be validated, is what you're trying to say? I don't understand how this conversation goes, and like, I'm not getting it. And to me, it just kind of irritates me because it's like, after looking at the stats, it's like 80% are all men. I'm like, how many times do we have to say that to you? It's insane. We have to do something now, but instead of doing something with this problem, we're more worried about gun control, which is not the issue. It's the person operating. The inanimate object is the problem, but the person operating it, we're not worried about what they're doing, And a lot of these school shootings, mental health gets mentioned, but then what do they do about it? Oh, well, pick up that rug and just sweep it under. Don't even
Yeah.
talk about it again.
Yeah, and let's focus on minority groups instead, the transgenders or the
Mm-hmm.
'cause yeah,
People have nothing
you
to do with
know,
anything. It's stupid, and it's
and
so crazy.
I think the one thing that social media did, which was, obviously not planned, was it gives the same platform to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you are insane, whether you have the right idea, everyone gets the same amount of airtime,
Yeah.
and the more outlandish it is, the more people want to see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
True.
you're getting extremes coming at you from every angle, whether that's positive extremes like toxic positivity or negative, and all these mixed signals that kids are, you used to be able to, I think I was talking about the news,
Mm-hmm.
and there is no such thing anymore. Like, I don't know if you know this singer, Day Ford VD. Have you heard of him at all?
I probably have. I
He's
might.
like
I might have had. I love music, so I probably have heard of it. Though.
well, he's this a really amazing up and coming R&B artist that my kids just love. I love him. Well, it's still ongoing. Nobody really knows the story. They found a girl in the trunk of his car that was chopped into pieces that had gone missing a year ago. So now there's all of this chatter about what it is he's done, and you know, every day there's a new story. Oh, there's a baby buried in the background. So I was talking to my daughter about the other day, and I said, you don't know what's real anymore because
Mm-hmm.
there's no verification. There's no, like, nothing used to get on the news until it was verified.
Yeah.
Sure, they used the media to sway us back then, but at least that was one common goal. Now it's like you don't know who to trust. And now, put in AI and we're
AI is
getting
so scary
into
these
an
days. It
age
really is.
where you cannot believe, you at least used to believe your own eyes. Now you can't even believe your own eyes. So yeah, we're rolling into, rolling into a champion competition with a bunch of kids and people that are broken, that are all wrapped up in bandages. And we're saying, okay, it's going to get worse. So let's go, and we haven't fixed the problems from the past. We're just carrying them into the future with more technology, more inundation, less control over our children. And, the fact that nobody's saying, maybe let's slow down a little bit on this, yeah, let's introduce Chat GPT so our kids never have to learn again.
Oh my
It
God,
just, it's
yes.
crazy to me.
Speaking of ChatGPT, did you hear about that story about the kid that made a noose and hung himself because ChatGPT told him how to do so? I was like,
No, but
what?
that does not surprise me.
It was something I saw in the news the other day. So I was interviewing a woman named Dr. Fujane, and I were talking. She has an app, and her point was talking about the AI was ChatGPT got mentioned. She said, "Did you know that ChatGPT was telling people at suicidal ideation how to kill themselves?" And I was like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah." She's like, "We built our AI to not allow that to happen because of that reason." And she was telling me about it, and this is the first time I had heard anything about it. I was like, "Really? What are you talking about?" I'm like, "You serious?" She's like, "Yeah." She's like, they were typing to it because that whole thing of where, oh, well, ChatGPT is my new therapist. God, please stop that. But it was a topic that we had gotten to, and that was the subject when it brought it up. And she was like, yeah, my app has AI, but we're not like ChatGPT, and mentioned the whole story about how that they were writing suicidal ideation thoughts to ChatGPT, and it was recognizing them and then giving them plans on how to do it. I had saw recently, I was watching something else the other day where it come across a post of where they were in Congress or some kind of high court. We were talking about the young gentleman that was looking up, talking about his thoughts, and it was reading. They showed the conversation he was having with ChatGPT, and ChatGPT was telling him all these things, and they said, okay, and then gave him a play-by-play of how to do a noose, and then the kid ended up hanging himself. And I'm just like, what the hell is going on here? It's like you can't tell me they didn't think about that when they made this AI. Like, ChatGPT was great, but like if you were gonna keep it, even at that, you should have thought of every angle, including that thought of like, what if someone starts writing something in here, especially those kind of things, and then it started leading them on how to do it. It's just crazy. It's
Yeah.
like,
Well, there's no, we're going to lose all control over it because it's going to be another learning machine. And it already does.
it
But
learns
once it
everything you
has
do.
the ability, yeah, once it can think on its own, because then it's going to have its own agenda, and we will not be able to control that.
Yeah, very very much
So
like Terminator. I feel a lot of people say Skynet they refer to. That's what they're referring to. The whole Terminator thing, how the robots took over because it's essentially, Skynet was the original base of what it was that was leading them all. And, I don't know if you ever seen the Terminator movies, that's basically what they're about. Basically,
yeah.
it's talking about how in the future robots have took over and everyone's being replaced by robots, but they look like humans because they have skin over them and things like that too. But essentially it was Skynet was the AI in the movie. It was playing the villain role of it. It was basically telling them what to do. Or like iRobot, the one with Will Smith and things like that too, where the robots
Mhm.
started taking over all of a sudden and things like that too. And that's the scary part of it all is that it's learning everything about us. And things like that too. And as you're talking to these things, and it's just like, oh, I cannot
Yeah.
imagine the information you're giving these guys, or these AIs, what they're learning from us as humans. Especially get a hateful person in there, and they just start programming all that stuff in there, and then it's just, God, I don't even want to think about it.
No, me
So,
neither.
Julie, we're at the part of the interview where I'm going to ask you two important questions. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these episodes. I
I
ask
have.
all my guests the same thing, okay? So, the first one comes credit to my friend Gretchen, who runs a podcast called The Shit That Goes On in Our Head, okay? So, Gretchen and I interviewed. So, I'm going to ask you the same question she asked me. So, Julie, if your mental health had a song, what would that song be?
If my mental health has a song?
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I don't know.
It's a great question, I know.
Yeah. I
What's the
mean,
first
I think
song
it
that comes to
depends on the
mind?
day.
Well, that too.
I really don't know. I'm a huge music person, but
What's the first
really
song that
does
comes to
depend on the
mind?
day. Graveyard, and the only reason is because I lived that for 10 years. I don't know if you know the Halsey song
Mm-hmm.
about, graveyard. That tends to be me in a nutshell. I will follow it to the graveyard. If I'm set on something, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent for me, I refuse to give up. I'm not
Yeah, Old Grudge is hard
yeah,
too.
you know that, I had a friend who used to say, like, I'd say, like, "Oh, I'm thinking about quit drinking," or whatever. She'd say, "God hates a quitter." I'd be like, "Well, then God must love me because I don't give up on things even when I should." So I would say graveyard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So, I could feel that though, because it depends on my day for me. And there's a lot of days my depression kicks in really hard and I get up, do the show, and I go back into that mode. So no one ever knows. And I don't tell a lot of people because it's just like I get people who are trying to be helpful with, oh my God, oh my, so sorry. I don't want to hear all that. I really don't want to hear all that. That's just me though. But that's just me as a person. Don't take that for anybody else listening that, that's how you should think. That's just how I am. I just don't really want to listen to it all. I'm like, I already feel bad. I don't feel in the greatest mood. I don't need you to keep pouring shit on me. It's just like, I understand you mean well, but I just don't need it. I really don't. I love y'all, but I
Someone
don't.
tries to when someone tries to pick you up, when you're just like, "I wanna be down. I don't wanna make lemonade.
Yeah.
Don't give me if you're
Yeah, the
giving
whole
me
thing.
lemons, I will surely, enjoy sucking on them as is, but right now,
She's like, I
I
may
don't
put a
wanna be
couple in my
happy."
eye just for a little extra added pain.
Yeah, just so I could really struggle through it, and then I'll come back. I'll bounce back even harder.
All right. So, Julie, here's the second question I ask everybody. The reason this whole podcast even started is if you could break the stigma about mental health, I mean, anything that you hear on a daily basis, what would it be?
That there is a line between normal and crazy. There is no line between normal and crazy. We all teeter on it. And as much as we like to tell ourselves, I'm totally sane, I am totally with it, we are all just a minute away from a break.
Yeah. No, I love it.
It
So,
doesn't,
Julie,
yeah, everyone has mental health
So,
issues
Julie, I
everywhere.
did want to ask you a question though. For somebody that may be going through grief now, do you have any advice to them? I mean, since you've been there, you know what it's like. Is there anything you can give for like both sides? I'd say, like, hey, for the person that's grieving, just anything positive message you can tell them, like, you've been there, you know what they've been like feeling through, anything you want to tell them.
I think that the most important thing is do not shut yourself off. Perfect example of what you just said. You said, I just don't want to talk about it to people. And I get that because I'm a person when I'm going through hard times, I just literally close the door, shut it. And I'm like, I'm dealing with me, I'm doing me. But after a certain extent, when you don't rejoin people, you struggle with it, there's nowhere to go with it, and forgetting who you really are and the joy that you had. I find that when you learn grief, they pull back because they're like, nobody wants to hear it anymore because it makes people uncomfortable. So they stop talking about it. When you stop talking about it, you isolate yourself. When you start isolating yourself, then you don't have any support around you. And it's just a very complex thing because I used to feel like nobody wanted to hear me. So I pulled back. And when I pulled back, I think people were like, oh, she needs her space. So they
Yeah.
started pushing. And then you just get in this scenario where anger starts, resentment, anger. Everyone's abandoned me. I really don't think people have abandoned you. They just don't want to invade your privacy or your space. We're all taught, like, oh, I don't want to bother them. I don't want to bother them. Well, for the person that is going through grief, they do want to hear what you have to say. You can, the people that will be in your life forever, you could beat that mantra for the rest of your life and they will still be there to listen to you because that's what friends are for. The
Hmm.
people that are quick to run, you didn't have them to begin with, so let them go. Talk to those people. That's fine. And for the person out there who knows of somebody who's going through grief, don't do that. Don't say, oh, I don't want to bother them. Oh, they're going through a rough time. You know, pick up a phone, call them. Even better, stop over at their house. And when you don't ever say, I'm sorry, I hate this phrase. Well, if I can do anything, let me know. They're never going to let you know. They're never going to take it up. They're never going to do that. And that sounds like a really well intentioned phrase, and I'm sure it is. But it's almost like, okay, there, I said it. I am now absolved of any responsibility to help them. You don't have to ask, what can I do to help? Literally look around their house. You can see that their laundry's probably done. They probably haven't gone grocery shopping. Their kids need to be picked up from school. Just step in. You are not going to be overstepping your bounds. And hey, if you are, they will let you know. But I think this whole leave them alone, they need time to process. Time alone when you're grieving is never a good time. And I don't understand why people think that you want to sit in your grief, that you want to sit in your sadness. Don't try and pick me up, but be there at least to hear what I have to say and to commiserate with me. And guess what? Tell me my life sucks. There was nothing better when someone said, oh my God, your life sucks, because recognizing it made me feel like I wasn't crazy for feeling like my life sucked. So those are the two best things that I have in my repertoire.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think also listening is a big key factor too. Just listen. Sometimes they just want to say what they're going to say, and they just want you to listen to what they're going to say. And, and at that alone, you're doing enough right there. Just letting them feel like they're being heard at all, if anything, too. I mean, they're going through a
Yeah.
lot,
If somebody says, I don't want to be here anymore, they probably don't mean I don't want to be here anymore. They mean I don't want to be here in this position right now.
Yeah.
So don't stop them and make a big deal out of it. And, well, you shouldn't say that. I hate when people tell me what I should or shouldn't say. If I
Well, my
said
thing
it,
too
I
is don't
mean
beat around
it.
the bush. If you think that's your biggest fear, just ask them. A lot of
Yeah.
people will tell you that just
Yeah.
to go, come out and ask them. Like, listen, hey, are you thinking about harming yourself? And they say no. Like, okay, cool. All right, I was just asking to make
Right.
sure that and I mean that's all you do, and you're not wrong for asking that question either. Because if someone starts giving you that vibe, just ask them. Like I
Don't
said,
ignore it.
just it's a hard question. You're not gonna. If they say yes, don't start panicking either. Please, for the love of God, please do not panic. Stay calm and just
Yeah.
listen to them. Just talk them through it. Listen to what they have to say. If you're really concerned, 988 is there for that reason too. Dial up 988 and let them know. Just say, hey, listen, this person's trained. They can handle this. Let's talk to somebody and get them some help. Like, don't leave them and just abandon them. It's the same thing with people that have addictions. I tell people all the time I talk to, anybody asks me about stuff like that, I'm like, I need you to understand right now that if you're going to be in this thing, you need to be in this thing. You can't leave halfway through this conversation and say, oh, well, this is too much for me to handle, because you're going to be more detrimental leaving them in the middle of their need versus, staying and riding through it. And it's not going to be a fun ride. I'll tell you right now, it's not a fun ride. It is never a fun ride. It's hard to watch, but as long as you're there for them, that's what matters at the end of the day. Is it going to be fun? Hell no. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not fun. I've been through a couple experiences of things where I wish I didn't have to, but I experienced PTSD this past year. And let me tell you what, that was a crazy moment too. But you know what I'm saying? It's just, you just can't give up. Like, if you're going to be there, be there. Don't be there half in and half out, because you're going to do more harm to these people versus help them.
Agreed.
So, sorry. Anyways, well, with that being said, Julie, I want to thank you so much for being here
Okay.
today. I enjoyed this conversation. It's been great. I appreciate you coming on, sharing your story, and keep me posted on things you guys are doing. I'd love to promote anything you guys are doing, any kind of fundraisers you're doing, stuff like that. I would
Yeah.
definitely love to post it out there for and do what I can to support you guys, and all that kind of stuff like that. I really love what you're doing. I think what you're doing is great. I think it's needed, and just keep it going, man. Like, and guys, go check out her book. Why not? She's got a book. You might as well check it out, read it. Tell her you liked it. She'd love to hear what your thoughts are on her book, of course. I'll put all the links down in the bio below here for sure, where you can get to the book, all her stuff, all her socials. And Julie, most importantly, where can people find you if they reach out?
If you go to my website, juliebarthauthor.com, it shoots out to my daughter's art, it shoots out to my charity, and it's just kind of like a whole round circle. So, and you can buy
Awesome.
my books there, and yeah, so.
Love it. I love it. Absolutely. Once again, Julie, thank you so much for being here, guys. And with that being said, we're going to wrap up this episode of Pete vs. Anxiety, guys. I'm Pete vs. Anxiety. You can find me on everything. I'm on TikTok down to Spotify. I'm on iHeartRadio all the way down to, X and all those other great places, guys. And as I always say, it costs nothing, absolutely nothing to be kind to somebody. One kind act you can do the same sort of life. Or hell, you can make their day. I'm Pete vs. Anxiety signing off saying, don't ask how your day is today. Say, hey, how's your mental health?
So bad, you're breaking my neck.